Hello, people. Finished the book. I wanted to finish this book because we went to the bookstore yesterday and got some new ones that I would much rather be reading than this one. Even though I've only been in Florida since June. Was it June? Feels like longer. But I have already started a shit pile of books that I quit reading, and this is one of them. This one actually came with me from Michigan. I bought this at King Book. It's called The Golden Dream, Seekers of El Dorado. And I'm not sure how many times I need to learn this lesson, but this is a broad overview of all the Spaniards and Germans and Englishmen that went looking for the legendary, really it turns out to be a city and a lake of gold. I'm much better focusing on individual, a book all about De Leon or De Soto or Pizarro than I am reading a book about everybody. But this book wasn't too bad. I don't think I gave it much of a chance when I first started it. I read like 70 pages and I put it to the side and read a few other books. But I finished it today. And let's get to my notes. I got a couple of movie titles here that have nothing to do with the book. We already talked about the shit pile. This was published in 1967. It's 407 pages. And I'm going to get right to some reading here. 42, page 42. This is little tidbits of information that you get about completely unrelated subjects that interest me. The history of syphilis is a cloudy one, but apparently it was unknown in Europe before the voyage of Columbus. The crew of the Pinta seems to have brought the pox back with them from the New World in 1493, and it traveled rapidly. There was an outbreak in Barcelona that year and another in England, where it was dubbed the French disease. It reached Germany under that name in 1495. But the French, who picked it up in Italy that summer, called it Mal di Naples, the Neapolitan disease. To the Italians, it was Mal Francis. In 1496, the Poles reported attacks of the German disease. 3 years later, the Russians accused the Poles of infecting them, and by 1512, the natives of the East Indies and much of Asia were muttering about the Portuguese disease. Then I jump all the way to page 139. The flood of American gold, and when they say American gold, they don't mean North America, was already beginning to have its calamitous effect on the Spanish economy. A treasure fleet from Peru had arrived in Spain between December 1533 and June 1534, carrying 708,000 pesos de oro in gold and a third as much in silver. Other such fleets now sailed frequently. Little of this wealth remained in Spain. The Spaniards had no industries and had to turn to more highly developed nations for manufactured goods. Thus Spain became a funnel that poured gold into Flanders, France, Italy, England, and Germany. Within Spain, the abundance of gold drove the prices of other commodities up. During the 16th century, the purchasing power of a Spanish laborer's earnings declined 30%, at a time of apparently unexpected prosperity. That the treasure of the Americas could impoverish Spain is one of the paradoxes of the conquest. Too little of the bonanza went into capital investment for the development of the country. Too much went to pay the debts of Emperor Charles' foreign wars and to purchase the costly goods of other lands. The crowning irony came midway through the century of treasure in 1557 when Spain found it necessary to declare bankruptcy and to default on international obligations. Page 144. In February 1541, an advance party started eastward from Quito. Gonzalo followed a few weeks later with the main body of his force. There are two near contemporary accounts of Pizarro's expedition, one by Garcilaso de la Vega and one by Cieza de Leon, which differ in a number of minor details while agreeing on the general outline of this unusually arduous journey. According to Garcilaso, Pizarro had with him 340 Spaniards, horse and foot, 4,000 Indians laden with supplies for building bridges and boats, 4,000 head of swine, a flock of llamas as beasts of burden, and about 1,000 of the ferocious dogs that now accompanied the Spaniards on their extended explorations. De Leon credits him with only 220 Spaniards and the accompanying entourage. I guess I noted that paragraph because, for one, there's these people that write the accounts of all these expeditions, and also because of the ferocious dogs. They used these dogs to terrorize the Indians. They would allow the dogs to tear people to pieces, make the other Indians watch that happen, and then they would get the information from the Indians that they needed. Second paragraph, 162. A lot of reading here, so just bear with me. This has to do with how the Amazon River got its name. The legend of the Amazons had a lengthy pedigree. Herodotus was one of the first to write of them, placing them in Pontus near the shore of the Euxine Sea. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the Black Sea. And describing their raids against Scythia, Thrace, and the coasts of Asia Minor. No men were permitted to dwell in their country, though once a year the warrior women visited a neighboring nation for purposes of procreation, slaying all male children or returning them to their fathers, and recruiting the baby girls. Their name allegedly came from the Greek mesos, without breast, for their custom of amputating the right breast to make the drawing of the bow more convenient. But a variety of other derivations have been put forward. And of course, the Amazons, like El Dorado, were really nothing but a myth. Oh, I'm supposed to read a little bit more. And third, down through the Middle Ages, the story of the Amazons descended along with all the other accumulated mythology of a credulous era, and by a natural process was transplanted to the New World. That's where the name, the Amazon, it was something else, Menonos or something like that, before they renamed it the Amazon. Then I have a phone number written here. Nobody needs to know that. Last paragraph, page 261. It's really a nice day here in Florida. We've got like a tropical depression out there that's keeping the temperature down. What had begun as an expedition to discover El Dorado of the Omaguas had become a runaway campaign of nihilism that produced not only a thorough exploration of two great river systems of northeastern South America, but also a bright and bloody episode in the psychopathology of the enterprise of El Dorado. Lope de Aguirre, the man who was described by a contemporary as being too cruel to be a Spaniard, left a powerful imprint on Venezuela. When the German explorer Alexander von Humboldt toured Venezuela early in the 19th century, he found that Aguirre's memory had survived as that of an evil spirit. At night, Humboldt reported, strange and ghostly fires danced over the plains, and this fire, which is like the will-o'-the-wisp of our marshes, does not burn the grass. The people call those reddish flames the soul of the traitor Aguirre. And the natives of Barquisimeto believe that the soul of the traitor wanders in the savannas like a flame that flies the approach of men. This Aguirre guy was crazy, just a murderous rampage through South America, not only killing Indians, but killing his own men, and then rebelling against the rest of the Spaniards. And then we get to an area of the book where they talk about Sir Walter Raleigh, and we've all heard the name Sir Walter Raleigh. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything to know about Sir Walter Raleigh. Some people might Google the name and then act like they know everything there is to know. I know what's in this book, and that's it. And eventually I'd like to get maybe a biography of the guy. But he wrote a lot, and they have excerpts from what he wrote in here. And he uses the word divers. And so I did Google that to figure out what the hell it meant. And it just means many. And if you look at the sentences with the word divers in it, it makes perfect sense to substitute the word many or the word various. And it is derived from the word diverse, but it's a little tiny bit different. Nobody uses this anymore. They talk about Sir Walter Raleigh quite a bit, and it made the last 1/3 of the book go really fast. He was involved in the colony in Roanoke, the failed colony. He is the first person to bring potatoes to Ireland. He gets arrested and he spends 12 years in the Tower of London. They let him out after 12 years to go back to South America and lead an expedition. And his son gets killed on this expedition. He finds no gold. The expedition is a total failure. When he gets back to England, he's put to death. They chop his head off. And they have to use 2 strokes to chop his head off. So it's kind of nasty. The book ends talking about Humboldt. And even Humboldt is interested in the legend of the Gilded Man. The legend of the Gilded Man is what drives a lot of this searching for El Dorado. It's supposed to be a king of a country that has so much gold that they coat him in a resin-like substance, and then they blow powdered gold all over his body. And he walks around like that for a minute, and then he dives into a lake. And they do this every year, so the bottom of the lake is supposed to be covered with gold. They never do find it. The lake really doesn't even exist. The city that was next to the lake doesn't even exist. Then we go all the way to the end. Second paragraph, page 405. Even in the 1900s, they're looking for this lake. And they find some lakes that are like temporary, seasonal things. And for 100 years, they tried draining these lakes. And the one time that they used pumps and everything, it still doesn't work. A curious thing happened. Once exposed to the sun, the mud became hard as a rock. It was impossible to get anything loose. And while the workers struggled with picks and axes, the lake slowly filled again. Contract Tractors Ltd. had recovered $10,000 worth of gold. but it had cost them $160,000 to do it. They fled away, and the abandoned pumps rotted, and the sanctuary of the gilded man remained inviolate. And then I have just a little bit on the last page here. One sentence, in fact. The quest for El Dorado was an epic of human folly, really. A case history in the power of man to bemuse himself with myth. That's it. I got some other books. This book took me 2 weeks to finish. Hopefully the next ones won't be quite so lengthy. Thanks for watching.